Welcome back to Everything Money. In this video, you will learn about the Fed, inflation, how it all works, and where they're going, what they say, what they mean, and how it all works. I'm confused. I'm always confused by inflation and how it works. I'm lucky to have Paul in my life and Mo, and here they are to be in your lives right now to talk about this. Paul, this is a big topic for you and Mo. Describe to us dummies out there how inflation, what the Fed thinks about, how this all works, and what we can think about it moving forward, how it affects our days.
So first, I'll ask Mo. Mo, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Well, inflation, there's no doubt it's running rampant. The Fed has created this mess not only during COVID, but over a very long period of time by the irresponsible printing and stimulus that they've been doing. And now they've put themselves in a situation where inflation is running and it's not stopping. And the numbers that came out yesterday and today, they're displaying that. And this is coming to the situation where everyone's talking about tapering. They need to taper at a faster rate, then they need to start raising interest rates, because the way to combat rampant inflation is raising interest rates. It's not what people want to hear, but I don't like when, as we were saying before this video, the Fed was created to be an independent think tank of the government. The Federal Reserve is not government, but it seems like it has been going down that road of being more in the realm of government. So
why? I know why. It's
Why?
just it's because we're becoming a much more, before the Fed would meet and we wouldn't know about what they talked about for 2 or 3, 4 days because we didn't have social media. We didn't have TV stations everywhere. Now it's becoming this, they're supposed to work independent of public opinion. But now we find ourselves, Jerome Powell, guys. And by the way, I'm not going to criticize Jerome Powell because he's just trying to protect his own legacy. I'm sure.
He does not
I can criticize that.
He doesn't want to be the person to bring this whole system down.
Or cause a big problem, cause a recession, etc.
Yep.
But remember that when the president of the United States tweets that Jerome Powell's an idiot and I'm going to fire him and all these things, don't think for a second that's not going to affect Jerome Powell. It 100%. Will absolutely affect Jerome Powell. And he went from saying, we're gonna keep interest rates higher to, okay, we're gonna cut rates. Why? Because he probably felt under public pressure because the president was tweeting about him, former president was tweeting about him and doing these things. And I just look at it saying, okay, the Fed's responsibility has always been unemployment and price control, right? Now it's becoming stocks, essentially. You find yourselves looking at people saying stocks are down because of this, that, and the other. Well, guys, remember, we can't have our cake and eat it too. At the end of the day, everybody wanted a bailout. Great, they got a bailout last year. But what did that lead to? It led to higher wages. Everybody likes that, right? Well, then with higher wages came higher costs. Higher costs means inflation. There is no way of having your cake and eating it too. That's just the reality. And the hard part is, and Seth, we've discussed this before, we talk about the minimum wage. And you've always said, Paul, I always just thought you increase minimum wage, everybody lives a better life. And I'm like, well, then what happens to the McDonald's hamburger that now costs 20 cents more to make because you pay everybody $20 an hour or whatever the number ends up being? It's not $20 an hour, but yeah. I have seen signs at McDonald's for $20 an hour.
We just saw that. Right? Yeah. And Paul, it wasn't until I owned a business until I realized how inflation can affect me, how supply chain prices and paying employees can affect my bottom line. I think, Paul, we've discussed ad nauseum the idea that, I think people who are oblivious to this think just raise the minimum wage, everything will be incredible. But as you have to pay your workers more, the money has to come from somewhere. Some people want it to come from the pockets of the rich, Paul. But as you've showed me, owning a business is not always the case.
Well, by the way, even if they are rich, that's not the point. The point is, I can afford to have my income drop by $500,000 a year. Yeah, fine. But that's not the point. The point is, at some point, I'll sit there and say, it's not worth my time. Yeah, maybe the first $500,000 isn't going to make me change my mind, but second, third, fourth one, yeah, I might be like, well, why am I taking all this risk on, doing all this work to make this much money? Would you do it? Well, me be like, well, it's better than making $20 an hour. Sure, but you also don't have the risk of tens of millions in loans and all these things happening. So with the Fed, we have to allow for the fact that at some point, there is going to be a come to Jesus moment. When is that? I have no idea. Frankly, I don't care about inflation. All my businesses are going to just pass the inflation on to the customer. That's all we're going to do. Why? Because that's what business does. Now, the hard part we have here is we've been so used to the last 15 or 20 years of very low inflation. And now all of a sudden we're starting to get 7, 8, 9% potentially inflation. Who knows where it's going? Listen, there's benefits to inflation. If you own a home, you're going to be very happy about inflation because your mortgage is going to be paid in previous dollars and your home value is going to go up. Okay, great. I just want everybody to remember that the Fed is going to do what the public wants them to do in a bad way. I'm worried when the Fed starts buying stocks. I remember 2 or 3, 4 years ago, my friend Michael Moskal said to me, Paul, the Fed's going to buy stocks someday. I'm like, no way. And sure enough, was it Janet Yellen, the former Fed chairwoman? Yeah. She said something recently about, she's the one that suggested it. She's like, well, we got to, at some points maybe buy stocks. I'm just like, oh my God, the Fed is now interfering with stock market.
It's funny. Michael also made the point. This was during COVID. He said they weren't buying stocks, but they were giving away so much money to the people that were buying stocks. He's like, this could be an indirect way of them buying stocks.
It did happen because in the last year we had more money going to ETF in the stock market than all previous 19 years combined.
Exactly, and also something else we have. No, go ahead.
That doesn't scream bubble. What does? But go ahead.
Yeah. And something else that we need to think about with the amount of money that's been printed over the past 18 months, it's devaluing the dollar as well. So you have inflation, you have devaluation of the dollar. Your dollar doesn't go as far when you go and purchase things. You're decreasing purchasing power.
Devaluation of the dollar essentially is inflation. I mean, when you devalue the dollar, that's what you're doing with inflation, and that's what Warren Buffett
at an incredible level. When does it get paid back? That's the question.
Well, but here's the interesting part, though, Mo. 12, 13 years ago, 14, when they were bailing out the banks and they were putting all this money, I remember thinking to myself, we're going to have rampant inflation. We didn't. Yeah. And that was my mistake of saying, but the money's not going into people's hands. It was going into the bankers' hands. Mm-hmm. And that's where my mistake was. I thought, okay, we're going to print tons of money and it's going to lead to inflation. And what was our inflation before this year? What was our inflation? It was nothing. It was 1.5, 2%. Yeah. So I am wrong on things, but now we're starting to see, but giving money to people, that's the way you get money out there. That's the way you get higher. That's where you kickstart economy. That's where you get all these things going. But what was our GDP growth? It's not like it's the late 90s where we had 5, 6, 7, 8% GDP growth. We're having like 2% GDP growth.
Yeah, we're at like 2.1, 2.2, somewhere in that range.
Now, the good news is that's real GDP. So you have to add inflation to that. So if we have 7% nominal, if we have 7% inflation with 2% real GDP growth, that's 9% nominal GDP. People's incomes will go up. Mm-hmm. And as people's incomes go up, as inflation stabilizes, let me pull up a chart of inflation in the last, let's see how far back it goes. Historical inflation. All right. So this is by year. Is this average? Okay, so look at this. Oh, wow. Look at the late teens of 1900s. Mo, they had 18% inflation then. But look how much it was 1%, 7.9, 17.4, 18. Then we had deflation. That's bad. And then obviously in the Great Depression, we had years of deflation, right? And then we had inflation. Let's go to the 80s because 80s were bad. Oh, late 80s, late 70s. Look at this, late 70s. Boom. Let me see if I can make this bigger. There we go. And then look at the look at 2000s. I mean, very, very low. 2000, we had deflation here in 2009. And look at last year, 1.2%. Now look at this year, 1.4, 1.7, 2.6, 4.2, 5.4. I mean, 6.8 here.
Yeah.
Guys, the pendulum is going to swing. This is why, go ahead.
I just drew a pendulum on my screen. I was just about to display that.
Oh, let's see it.
So Paul's about to say, the pendulum has to swing. When you get to Seth's chart, there we go. Here's my euphoric highs, depressing lows. We're swinging and we're getting to these euphoric highs of everything that's happening. The pendulum has to swing back. The question is the pendulum going to swing all the way over here to these incredibly depressing lows, or going to fall somewhere in the middle? We're not somewhere in the middle right now. That's the thing. That's the thing that worries me. And I'm not trying to predict things. It really doesn't matter what the prediction is. Are we going to the depressing lows, or are things going to stabilize in a more remote way?
Listen, guys, for everybody out there who's watching this video, This is inflation is exactly why you should save your money, live well within your means, because as prices go up, you're probably just going to save less money. And that's just the reality of it. Like if you have to pay more for a gallon of milk, okay, you're just going to save less money. But if you live paycheck to paycheck, inflation is going to hit you harder. It's absolutely going to hit you harder. The gas pump, all these things are just going to hit you harder. And that's fine. But hopefully you take that as a lesson learned. But somebody who saves 30% of their income is going to be able to withstand 10% inflation very, very easily. Somebody who saves less than 10% of their income, they're not going to be able to absorb 10% inflation because their costs just going to go up 10%. They're going to be hurt.
Right.
So, final take, Paul. I mean, for people, what kind of actions can they do moving forward? How much should they worry or not worry about this?
Listen, I don't believe in. I just, of course, my position financially is a lot different. But like I said, worry if you don't save enough money, if you don't save a lot of money. If you save a lot of money, you might just have a temporary time where you have to cut back your savings, and that's fine. But also think about inflation, increasing rates slows down the economy. There will be layoffs that will affect the average person more than guys like me, unfortunately.
Yeah, that should be the worry. Not so much what is inflation doing. Inflation it's going to be what it is. It's how do you prepare for it? That's the way to look at it.
If these concepts resonate with you, you can join our community, Everything Money, or patreon.com/everythingmoney. Join this discussion with our over 6,000 users who are talking on a daily basis. You can go trade with Mo. You get access to all our videos. You get the software. Keep watching more of our videos. There's a language we talk about with investing, and we love the mindset aspect of this. So Paul and Mo are always here for me and you to learn from. So that's our take. Fondle a thumbs up. Good luck out there, of course, and we'll see you next video. Thanks, guys.